The signal drifted through the dark between stars, silent for centuries. It was broken, faint, and almost gone, like a ghost whispering across space. Most scanners ignored it, dismissing it as static. But then, one human outpost, forgotten on the edge of nowhere, caught the message. At first, the engineers thought it was nothing. Just random noise. But the patterns kept repeating. Words hidden in static. A code. And inside that code was a voice. A desperate voice. Help us, if anyone hears this, we are still alive. The humans froze. The message was not from Earth. It was from far away, deep inside unknown space. It was old, too, so old it should not even exist. Whoever sent it was not human, but they spoke in broken human language, as if someone had taught them long ago. The technicians played the signal again. The voice shook with fear, filled with pain. Something was hunting them. Something was killing them. The station commander, Captain Reese, ordered silence across the control deck. His eyes narrowed as he listened. The aliens were not begging any empire. They were not calling the Galactic Council. They were calling only humans. The message ended in static. The room was cold and silent. Everyone understood what it meant. Someone out there remembered humanity, even though the galaxy had long forgotten Earth. Someone far away still believed humans would come. But Earth had left the galactic stage centuries ago. They had vanished after old wars, pulling back into their own system, building walls of silence. The Council called humans dangerous, reckless, unpredictable. Many younger species even believed humans were extinct. And yet, here was proof. Aliens had sent their last hope not to the Council, not to the great empires, but to the ghosts of Earth. "Captain," whispered the comms officer. "Do we answer?" Reese looked at the signal one more time. His voice was firm. "We don't ignore cries for help." The outpost relayed the message back to Earth. Within days, the Defense Fleet Command had it. Generals, admirals, and politicians sat in silence as the old signal was played again. "Help us, please. Humans, help." The voice cracked before cutting out forever. For a long time, no one spoke. Then, one by one, the leaders of Earth looked at each other. Humanity had sworn never to interfere again. They had promised themselves peace. They had left the galaxy to its own games and wars. But this was different. Someone had called for them by name. And humanity remembered. The order was given. Old fleets hidden in shipyards were powered back to life. Titans of war, built in silence and secrecy, now roared as their engines lit the dark again. Crews were awakened. Pilots climbed into cockpits. Ancient war codes were unlocked. The galaxy had forgotten what human warships looked like. It was about to remember. When the Council heard whispers of movement from Earth, they panicked. No one dared believe it at first. But deep space sensors confirmed it. Human vessels were leaving Sol. Big ones. War class. And they were heading straight toward the coordinates of the lost signal. Alien ambassadors rushed to stop it. They demanded explanations. They sent warnings, threats, pleas. But humanity did not answer. They did not explain. They did not ask permission. The fleets moved in silence. The first alien patrols saw them, vast black ships, larger than cities, armored like fortresses, moving in perfect formation. Some called them monsters. Others called them nightmares. But all knew one thing. Nothing in the galaxy looked like a human warship. And behind them, whispers spread across star systems like wildfire. The humans were coming back. But no one yet knew why. They did not know about the signal. They did not know about the cry lost to the stars. Only Earth knew. Only Earth had heard it. In the shadows of the council chambers, fear grew. If humanity was moving again, it could only mean one thing: war. Yet far away, on a dying world, a small group of desperate aliens still waited in silence. They had sent their last message into the void, not knowing if it would ever be heard. not knowing if anyone would care. And then, one day, their skies would darken with fire. Because humanity was on the way. The human fleet did not travel with fanfare. There were no broadcasts, no warnings, no signals to announce their coming. They simply moved, silent and unstoppable, like a storm building at the edge of the galaxy. For weeks, alien patrol ships reported shadows on their sensors. Massive readings. Shapes too large to be ordinary vessels. But when they tried to approach, the signals vanished into the dark. Some ships never returned. Those that did spoke only of black giants moving through space, engines burning like suns. The Galactic Council demanded answers. Meetings were called in panic. Dozens of species crowded the great chamber, their voices overlapping, their fear clear. The humans swore never to interfere again, shouted one ambassador. This is an invasion, another hissed. They must be stopped before it's too late. But no one had the courage to act. Everyone remembered the last time humanity fought. They remembered the wars, the burned fleets, the shattered colonies. The humans had walked away only because they chose to, not because anyone forced them. Now, if they were returning, the council feared it would mean blood. Yet deep in their command decks, the humans did not speak of conquest. They did not speak of revenge. They spoke only of the signal. Admiral Cade stood at the center of the flagship's war room, eyes fixed on the star maps. Dozens of other officers watched in silence as the alien coordinates glowed red. This is where they sent their cry, Cade said. His voice was calm, but heavy with meaning. This is where we go. No one argued. The fleet jumped. Across space, alarms blared. The humans had crossed into council-protected territory. Dozens of species scrambled their defense fleets. But the human warships ignored them. They moved as if no one else existed, as if no blockade could matter. An alien fleet of 70 ships tried to intercept near the Denari Nebula. The moment they locked weapons, the humans answered. It was not a battle. It was a lesson. In minutes, the alien fleet was gone, cut apart by rail cannons, shredded by missile storms, burned by weapons that had no name in alien tongues. Survivors fled in terror, carrying only one message. You cannot stop them. The galaxy trembled. But while empires argued and fleets broke, the signal's origin world still suffered. On the edge of a dying system, the survivors waited. Their cities were ash. Their oceans had boiled. A predator species hunted them without mercy, tearing through what little hope remained. Every day, fewer lived. Every day, more fell. The young leader of the survivors, a thin alien named Sarek, stood atop the ruins and looked to the stars. His people were broken. His voice was gone. He did not believe the message had been heard. It had been too long, too far, too much to hope for. Yet, on that night, the sky lit up. First, it was a single streak of fire. Then, another. Then dozens. Hundreds. The ground shook as thunder rolled across the heavens. The survivors fell to their knees, eyes wide with terror and awe. Above their world, a fleet larger than mountains had arrived. Human ships. Dark, silent, endless. The predators who hunted the survivors roared as they saw the newcomers. Their fleets rose from the burning horizon, weapons ready. For them, this was only another hunt. Another prey. But this time, the prey had teeth. The humans moved with precision, their warships shifting into formation like pieces of a blade. Then, without a single word, they struck. The predators had never known fear before. Now, they learned it in seconds. Their ships burned in white fire. Their weapons shattered before they could fire. Their numbers meant nothing. Against humans, they were only targets. The survivors watched the sky become a storm. A war of fire and thunder. For the first time in generations, they felt something strange. Hope. Sarek's chest shook as tears filled his eyes. He whispered, his voice breaking. They came. The humans came. On the flagship Dauntless, Admiral Cade watched the battle unfold. To him, this was not war. This was duty. A call answered. A promise kept. But in the shadows of the galaxy, eyes watched. Other empires. Other powers. They saw humanity's return. They saw their strength, their fury, their silence. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy remembered what humans truly were. Not ghosts. Not myths. Not extinct. They were back. And they had come because someone called for them. The smoke of battle still hung in orbit when the last Predator ship exploded. Fire rained across the sky, glowing against the dying world below. The humans had not just won. They had erased the enemy. On the ruined surface, the survivors stood in silence. They had never seen such power. To them, humans were legends, half-forgotten stories passed down like myths. But now the myths had descended from the sky in black iron warships. Sarek, their leader, could not speak at first. His people were too weak, too broken. Only a few thousand remained where once there had been billions. He lifted his eyes to the heavens and whispered, "Please, let them see us." The humans had already seen. Dropships broke from the massive fleet, cutting through the atmosphere like falling stars. Engines roared, shaking the ground. The survivors scattered in fear, unsure if the giants in the sky had come as saviors, or as conquerors. The first dropship landed in the ruins of a shattered city. Its ramp lowered. Out stepped tall figures in black armor, their visors glowing faint blue. They carried no banners, no symbols. Only silence and strength. Sarek's knees trembled. He forced himself forward, though his body screamed with weakness. "Are you a humans?" he asked in his broken voice. The armored figure removed his helmet. His face was pale, his eyes sharp, his jaw grim. "We are," the man said simply. His voice was deep, calm, steady. A human voice. The survivors gasped. Some cried. Others fell to the ground, bowing in disbelief. Sarek's throat tightened. "You came," he whispered. His eyes filled with tears. "We sent the message, long ago. We thought it was lost." The human commander studied the alien leader for a long moment. "We heard it," he said. "And we answered." Behind him, more armored humans stepped out. Medics rushed forward, scanning the survivors, tending wounds, handing out rations. Children hid at first, then slowly approached the strange giants offering food and water. For the first time in years, the survivors tasted bread. They drank clean water. They felt warm hands heal them. And they wept. But not all eyes were calm. The human soldiers scanned the skies, their weapons always ready. The predators were gone from this world, but no one believed they were finished. On the flagship Dauntless, Admiral Cade studied the reports. His officers spoke in grim tones. "Predator forces were stronger than expected," one said. "They won't stop. They'll come again," another warned. Cade nodded. His gaze was cold. "Then we'll be ready." Back on the surface, Sarek walked beside the human commander. He led him through the ruins, past burned towers and collapsed streets. The air smelled of ash and sorrow. "This is what they did to us," Sarek said softly. "They came from the dark. They did not want slaves. They did not want land. They wanted us dead. All of us. For sport. For hunger. For nothing." The human commander's jaw tightened. His eyes scanned the destruction. He had seen war before, but this was different. This was extermination. Sarek's voice broke. "We begged the council. We begged every empire. None came. They told us to surrender. They told us to die quietly. Only humans we remembered. Only humans we called." The commander turned to him. His words were sharp, iron-like. "Then it was good you remembered." That night, the survivors huddled under the stars, looking up at the human fleet. The black ships blocked the moonlight, vast and terrifying. Yet, for the first time, they felt safe. Children whispered to each other. "The humans came." Mothers whispered, We are not alone. And Sarek whispered to himself, we still have a future. But far away, beyond the ruined system, the predators gathered. The loss of their fleet did not frighten them, it enraged them. They had never faced resistance like this. They had never lost. Now they wanted blood. Hundreds of predator warships assembled, engines burning, weapons charging. Their leaders roared in fury. Their prey had called for help, and someone had answered. They would crush both. And in the council, fear turned to chaos. The ambassadors argued day and night. Some demanded war against humans. Others demanded silence, too afraid to provoke them. Rumors spread like wildfire. The humans had returned. They had destroyed a fleet. They were building alliances again. Old scars reopened. Old memories of wars long past burned fresh. But humanity did not care for politics. They did not care for whispers. They had heard a call for help. And they were not finished answering it. The sky above the ruined world was quiet for only a short time. The survivors slept for the first night without fear, under the shadow of human warships. But peace in war never lasts. Alarms screamed across the Dauntless at dawn. Admiral Cade stood tall in the command deck as red lights flashed. Predator fleet incoming, a young officer reported, voice tight with fear. Hundreds of ships. Larger than anything we've seen yet. Cade's eyes narrowed. His voice was steady. Then we hold the line. The humans had known this would happen. Predators did not accept defeat. They always came back with more teeth, more fire, more rage. But this time, they would learn what it meant to challenge humanity. In orbit, the human fleet shifted. Gigantic black ships moved into formation, their armor glinting in the weak light of the dying sun. Weapons hummed to life, rail cannons sliding into position, missile bays unlocking, energy shields burning bright. The survivors on the surface looked up in terror as the sky filled again, not with meteors this time, but with enemy ships. Countless predator vessels poured from the void, their hulls sharp, their engines burning red. They came like a swarm, like an ocean of steel. Sarek stood on the ruins, watching, his heart sinking. So many, he whispered. His people clung to him in fear. But above them, the humans did not flinch. The first shots were fired. Predator weapons screamed across space, burning through the void, slamming against human shields. The Dauntless shook, alarms echoing, but the line held. Return fire, Cade ordered. The humans answered with fury. Rail cannons thundered, hurling slugs the size of towers at near light speed. Each impact tore predator ships in half. Missile storms streaked across the void, weaving through enemy formations before exploding into fireballs that lit the system brighter than suns. But the predators were endless. For every ship destroyed, 10 more seemed to arrive. They swarmed like locusts, throwing themselves against the human wall. On the surface, the survivors huddled together, their world shaking under the thunder of battle. Children covered their ears, elders prayed, and Sarek looked to the sky with wide eyes. For the first time, he feared the humans might not win. Inside the Dauntless, tension grew. Admiral, they're pressing the flank. Shields at 20%. We're surrounded. Cade's face remained cold, his eyes sharp. He had fought wars before. He knew when to stand, and when to strike. Deploy the hammer, he said quietly. The bridge went silent. Then the order spread like fire. Deep within the fleet, hidden inside the belly of a Titan-class warship, a weapon awakened. The Hammer of Earth. A weapon so powerful it had never been used in open war since the humans had withdrawn from the galaxy. The enemy swarm drew closer, claws reaching for the human fleet. Target locked, the weapons officer reported. Cade's voice was calm. Fire. The hammer roared. A beam of pure destruction cut through space, wide as a mountain, bright as a star. Predator ships vanished in an instant, whole formations ripped apart like paper. The beam carved through the swarm, leaving nothing but burning wreckage in its wake. On the surface, The survivors cried out in shock and awe as the sky itself seemed to split in two. Sarek fell to his knees, whispering, They are gods of war. But the battle was not yet over. The predators screamed in fury, their leaders howling orders. More ships rushed forward, desperate to crush the humans before they could fire again. The Dauntless shuddered under the counterattack. Hull plates cracked. Alarms screamed. Crews shouted as damage reports flooded in. Yet the humans did not break. Push them back, Cade growled. The fleet surged forward. Human ships tore into the enemy swarm, cutting through their lines with brutal precision. Fighters launched in waves, swarming like steel hornets, ripping predator bombers apart. 4 hours, the battle raged. Fire filled the heavens. Planets trembled. Space itself seemed to burn. And then, at last, silence. The predator fleet was gone. Broken. Shattered. Burning wrecks drifted in the void. Only a handful of survivors fled into the dark, carrying tales of terror back to their masters. On the surface, the survivors stood in stunned silence. They had seen death before. They had seen slaughter. But they had never seen a defense like this. They had never seen an enemy crushed so completely. When the skies cleared, Sarek looked up at the black ships of Earth and whispered, The galaxy will never believe this. But far away, beyond the reach of the battle, the galaxy already knew. Reports spread like wildfire. Human fleets had returned. Human weapons had spoken. And the hammer of Earth had been unleashed. In the council chambers, fear turned into chaos. Ambassadors screamed at one another. Some demanded war against humanity. Others begged for peace. No one could agree. And in the dark halls of predator space, their leaders howled in rage. They would not rest. They would not stop. If humans wanted war, then war they would have. But Admiral Cade, standing tall on the bridge of the Dauntless, knew the truth. This was only the beginning. Humanity had returned to the stars. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The battlefield was silent at last. Predator wreckage floated across the void like burning graves, and the black hulls of human warships stood untouched among the fire. On the surface, the survivors could not believe they were still alive. Their prayers, their cries, their desperate signal into the dark, it had worked. Humanity had answered. But for Admiral Cade, victory brought no peace. He stood on the Dauntless command deck, staring at the wreckage on the star maps. They'll come back, he said softly. And next time, it will be worse. His officers nodded grimly. They all knew it. Predators did not forgive. That night, Cade descended to the ruined world. He wanted answers. The survivors gathered around him in the remains of their city. Their faces were thin, their bodies broken, but their eyes glowed with something new, hope. Sarek, their leader, stepped forward, still weak but proud. You saved us, Sarek said. His voice cracked. But you do not yet understand why we called you. Why only you? Cade's brow furrowed. Then explain. The alien's gaze dropped to the ash beneath his feet. For a long moment, he was silent. Then, slowly, he lifted his eyes to meet Cade's. The predators fear no one, Sarek said. They laugh at the council. They destroy entire species for sport. They believe themselves unstoppable. But there is one enemy they whisper about. One they cannot forget. The humans listened in silence. They remember you, Sarek whispered. They remember humanity. Long ago, before you vanished, you fought them. You beat them. You left scars they still carry. To them, you are not just another prey. You are the only predators greater than them. A cold silence fell across the human soldiers. They exchanged uneasy looks. None had spoken of those ancient wars in centuries. But the memories were there, buried deep in Earth's history. The time humanity clashed with monsters that hunted entire civilizations. Sarek's voice broke with desperation. That is why we called you. Because only you have ever made them bleed. Cade's eyes hardened. The truth made sense now. The predators were not just raiders. They were exterminators. And humanity, long ago, had been the only ones to stop them. Back aboard the Dauntless, the officers reviewed what little data they had. The survivors' world had been only one of many. Dozens of systems had already fallen. Billions of lives erased. The predators were spreading faster than the Council dared admit. They don't want territory, one officer muttered. They want extinction. And the Council does nothing, another spat. Cade's jaw tightened. He had expected as much. The Council always feared humanity more than any other threat. They would rather lose half the galaxy than admit humans were needed again. Meanwhile, across the stars, news of the battle spread. Rumors raced from colony to colony. Humans had returned. Humans had fought. Humans had won. Some species whispered in relief. Others cursed in fear. But all agreed on one thing: the balance of power was broken. The predators, enraged by their defeat, prepared their next move. In the deep void of their territory, their warlords gathered. They carved scars into their armor, symbols of vengeance, and swore an oath: humanity would die screaming, their worlds burned, their ships broken. But even in their fury, there was fear. The humans had fired the hammer. And predators did not forget pain. Back on the survivor world, Sarek stood beside Admiral Cade as human engineers set up shield generators, medical stations, and supply bases. His people were alive, but their eyes still carried sorrow. "Why help us?" Sarek asked quietly. "The Council abandoned us. They said we were not worth saving. Why would you, after so long, choose to fight again?" Cade's answer was simple, his voice like stone. "Because we don't ignore those who call for us. You asked for humans. That was enough." Sarek bowed his head, tears in his eyes. For his people, hope was not just a word anymore. It was real. It stood in orbit above them in the form of warships stronger than anything in the stars. But Cade knew this was only the beginning. The predators would come in greater numbers. The Council would try to interfere. And the galaxy would soon face a choice: stand with humans or fall alone. On Earth, the old shipyards thundered with life. More fleets awakened from slumber. Titans of war, buried for centuries, rose again. Crews trained day and night. The drums of war had begun to beat. The signal that was once lost to the stars had brought humanity back into the galaxy. And this time, they would not leave quietly. The chamber shook as the last barrier broke. The core of the alien ruin pulsed like a living heart, bathing everything in cold, white fire. Symbols older than stars lit up the walls, moving like rivers of light. The crew realized this was not a weapon, not yet. It was a seed. A dormant starkiller waiting for someone reckless enough to wake it. The captain's voice cut through the chaos: "Shut it down. Now." But it was too late. The machine had tasted human blood, and it responded. Energy surged, warping space itself. Their sensors screamed with impossible readings, coordinates across the galaxy. This ancient device wasn't a weapon alone. It was a map. A door to forgotten wars, hidden fleets, and graves of civilizations that had dared to touch it before. Outside, alien fleets moved closer, desperate to seize the ruin. Inside, humanity faced the cruelest truth: the device had recognized them. It had chosen them. And the galaxy would soon know what that meant. The alien coalition believed humanity had finally shown their limits. Titan-class Leviathan was damaged, its hull torn and scarred from endless barrages. Enemy fleets gathered for a final push, thinking victory was near. But deep inside the crippled ship, humans were not retreating, they were preparing. Every corridor became a fortress. Marines sealed bulkheads, engineers rerouted power, and AI combat drones awoke with red eyes. The Leviathan was not just a warship anymore, it had become a living weapon of rage. When the coalition launched boarding parties, expecting surrender, they found death instead. Human soldiers fought like monsters, wielding jury-rigged weapons and using the very wreckage of their ship as traps. Explosives turned hallways into firestorms. Plasma-cut hulls collapsed onto invaders. Screams filled the void as boarding craft burned. On the bridge, Captain Rourke gave the order, "Activate the core release." The aliens saw the ship's engines flare, but instead of retreat, the Leviathan vented pure fusion fire into the enemy fleet, igniting their formations. Thousands of alien ships vanished in seconds. For the first time, the galaxy realized, humans didn't fear death. They embraced it, and dragged their enemies into the fire with them. Whispers spread through the surviving fleets. They are not soldiers. They are Deathworlders. And death follows them. The Leviathan, still burning, pushed forward. The galaxy's greatest armada was now breaking apart in terror.